Why am I here? The answer to this question is not at all obvious, particularly to me. So, I grew up in a small, isolated, and very troubled city called Thunder Bay. In Thunder Bay, when I was a kid, cultural diversity was getting Chinese food for dinner. Egg rolls, really exotic food. Wontons, a bridge too far, too weird. How did I go from that to giving a talk at one of the largest mosques in Canada, alongside two very intelligent, talented, and successful women? Why am I here? Well, the answer to that question is January 29th, 2017. This person had just become president of the United States about a week before. This was something which really demonstrated how the political narrative around the world had changed and how it was going to some really bad places. I was worried about what was going on in the US. I was worried about what was going on in the UK. But I thought, you know what? Here in Canada, things are pretty good. We don't have to worry that much. It'll be fine. I was complacent. And then the attack on the mosque in Quebec City happened. I was absolutely devastated. I could not believe that something like this could happen in Canada. This is the kind of thing that happens somewhere else. This isn't the kind of thing that happens in Canada. How could this happen? I knew I had to do something. I watched what was going on in the US, and I wondered, why aren't people doing something to push back against this darkness? Why aren't they taking some kind of action? And when that happened here, I thought, you know what, no. Words are not enough. Thoughts and prayers are not enough. It is the time for action. But what do you do? Given the magnitude of something like this, how do you push back against that? I thought for a long time about what to do. I wasn't sure. The idea which I eventually came up with was to go to the local mosque, Pickering Islamic Center, and to give out hugs with my daughter. Now, I'd never been to a mosque before. I'm not Muslim. Why would I go to a mosque? Just like I'm not Hindu. Why would I go to a Hindu temple? Or a synagogue? I'm not Jewish. I had no idea what to expect. Another religion's sacred space it's this opaque thing. I had no clue what the traditions were, etc. And to kind of complicate things even further, this mosque, Pickering Islamic Center, had a window shot out 2 years earlier. I was worried that going to that mosque the day after a stranger had walked into a mosque in Quebec City, that I might scare a lot of people. But I had to do something. I had to show some kind of support for my neighbors in the local community, for my Muslim neighbors. This was an attack that targeted Muslims, but it was an attack on all of Canada. And it was an attack on the shared, diverse, and welcoming idea which Canada represents. I had to do something to support my neighbors. So we went and we gave out hugs. We set up our cardboard sign. I went there with my daughter right after she got off the bus, about 3:30. We wrote free hugs on an old piece of IKEA cardboard, and we went over to the mosque. And we just started hugging everybody that came in the door. It was well over 100 people that day, and there were so many smiles and laughter, and we made so many friends. Some people had tears in their eyes. It was one of the most fantastic experiences of my life. We didn't actually originally intend to go inside. We had intended to stand outside because, again, I had never been in a mosque. I didn't know what the expectations were. I didn't know how any of it worked. But we were there about 30 seconds, and somebody poked the head of the door and said, no, come inside, it's a lot warmer in here. Which is absolutely true. It was January 30th, and it's quite windy where the mosque is. So they were very welcoming, very friendly, and they invited us inside. And that's been a trend. We have been so very warmly welcomed by the Pickering Islamic Center community. So we kept coming back at Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, and just giving out hugs, and giving out hugs, and giving out hugs. And we made some very good friends, like Shaheen and Omer, and their son Adam have become very good friends since we first started visiting. On the 1-year anniversary of the attack, I tried to come up with some kind of idea, something to do. And Omer was saying, well, rather than focusing on the negative aspects, rather than making it a vigil, why don't we focus on the positive? Why don't we focus on all the good things that happened as a result of this? The community support, exactly like what Kathy was talking about. All the support that came out, all the people that showed that they were there for their Muslim neighbors. And that was a fantastic idea, to focus on the positive. And that, combined with Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." That became the idea for the candles. And that became the fundamental idea for this initiative. Push back the darkness. Because the idea is to push back the darkness of ignorance and hate with the light of knowledge and friendship. So what's going on with this initiative? So there are many events that are going to be happening on or around January 29th, which is one of the focal points. First, members of Parliament and senators are going to be making statements in the House of Commons and in the Senate about this. So my member of Parliament, Jennifer O'Connell of Pickering-Uxbridge, she's going to be making a statement in the House of Commons. Senator Salma Talajan will be making a statement in the Senate. That's not going to be on January 29th because the Senate's not starting for a few weeks afterwards now because they've delayed it. But she'll be making a statement as soon as it is back in session. There are going to be lapel pins sent out to all members of Parliament and all senators. 435 of them. I've printed and made them myself. There's a lot of these things. And this is what they look like. So all members of Parliament and all senators will have a lapel pin just like this that they'll be wearing to the House of Commons and to the Senate. There's going to be a vigil centered around the Centennial Flame on Parliament Hill on January 29th. We're also planning to make January 29th at 8 p.m. a day to push back the darkness. We're asking everybody to put a candle or a light in their window. Not a candle, please don't set your curtains on fire. That's a really bad idea. Something that's not flame, a light. You place a light in your window. And this is the time and date of the Quebec City attack. And this is a symbol that will allow all of us to show our commitment to push back the darkness of ignorance with the light of knowledge in a very tangible, concrete way. So also, as Dr. Kathy mentioned, the collecting of stories and drawings is a very important part of this. Collecting experiences so that we can get rid of ignorance, because ignorance underpins so many of these bad things. So, why stories and drawings? Why are these such an important fundamental part of this initiative? The answer to this comes again from Thunder Bay. I grew up in Thunder Bay. I left when I was 18, so I was born there and grew up. Thunder Bay has a huge problem with systemic racism towards Indigenous people. It is pervasive, it is systemic, it is everywhere, it is in your pores, you cannot escape it. The racism in that city towards Indigenous people is crazy. If you've read anything at all about Thunder Bay in the last few years, it was probably about this problem. And it's been like this for a very long time. It's only just now getting covered. I grew up in that environment, and I became racist towards Indigenous people. What changed for me was when I was 11, one of my friends on the street moved away, and an Indigenous family moved in. One of the boys there was my age. We became very good friends. Because of that experience, I could start to look at the things that I had heard and say, wait, no, this isn't true. My friend's not a drug addict. His parents aren't alcoholics. They have jobs. Their house is not in disrepair. All of these things are false. They're tropes. These racist tropes get made up and trotted out. I could tell from my direct experience with my friend that these were not true. Because the ignorance was gone, all those bad things went away with it. I was able to start to deprogram myself. So that's why that's so important. And events. There are also events in cities across the country. And these are important for a similar reason. When you meet somebody, when you develop those friendships, when you have those experiences, the ignorance, which is the necessary first ingredient for all of these dehumanizing things, all of this labeling, that ignorance is gone. it becomes very much harder to reduce your neighbor to a one-dimensional caricature and just apply a label and stop thinking, when you know their full richness of their humanity. So there are events so far planned for Ottawa, Mississauga, Brampton, Scarborough, Calgary, Pickering, Ajax, and Whitby. There are also many others currently being planned. This list is going to grow. This is the current list. So please come out and attend some of these events. Meet your neighbors. Build friendships. There are many supporting parliamentarians, in addition to Jennifer O'Connell and to Salma Talajan. Senator Francis Lankin is also a supporter. MP Salma Zahid is a supporter. MP Joel Lightbound, who is the MP of the Quebec City riding where the attack occurred, he is a supporter as well. There are also several supporting organizations, such as ISNA. Again, thank you very much. That's why we're here. And CCM, CCMW. There's the number of organizations that are participating and that are helping out in this and that have said, yes, this is an idea that we want to support, is extremely inspiring. How can you help? You already are. By being here, you are helping. That is extremely important. Keep doing this. And I thank you very much for being here, for coming here, for being willing to spend your time and to meet your neighbors and to help. You can put a light in your window on January 29th at 8 p.m. Remember, nothing that burns. Something that's just a light. I don't want anybody setting the curtains on fire. We also have these coloring pages which we're offering to school boards across the country so they can be sent home with kids so that they're aware of what's going on as well. They can take these, color them in, and they have information about this event. And you can actually see, I'd like to draw your attention to a poster that's behind you. It's hanging on the board over there. Now, the intent of that poster is for each of you to sign it so that this becomes something that you can leave your mark. And then this is a reminder of our community and of our commitment to pushing back the darkness of ignorance and hate with the light of knowledge and friendship. You can contribute a story and or a drawing to go to Parliament Hill. Nobody else can tell your story. Only you can tell your story. I want to put these in front of all of our members of Parliament and all of our senators because they are public figures and their words are very important. When an MP or a senator says something that causes harm to a particular group, bad things happen very quickly in the public space. We had an example of this earlier this year with Ali Jinnah Park, where a statement was made about why are we naming a park Ali Jinnah Park. Ali Jinnah was the founder of Pakistan. The next day, a sign in Ali Jinnah Park was sawed down. Our members of Parliament and senators need to understand the impacts of their words. We are a shared, diverse, and welcoming community, and I want to make sure that they remember that. And these stories, and if you contribute stories, if you are comfortable sharing them publicly, they will go on the website as well, so that people across Canada can also learn from your stories and can help to drive back some of their own ignorance. These are drawings for my daughter. These are going to be going to Parliament Hill. So if you have children, or if you yourself want to draw something, I would be very happy to bring those along. Spread the word. This is extremely important. I'm standing here because people spread the word. This started off with a hug on January 30th. That's how all of this began. One simple little hug, and then another one. And we kept doing it. And we kept giving out more hugs. And more hugs. And even more. We've just kept doing it. And this has grown. And we have made so very many friends. And this fellow, small act of kindness, he helped to make our sign much easier to read because I had just written something down on a piece of cardboard a year earlier. And so he helped to make that much more legible. Simple thing, very appreciated. A small act of kindness can have a big impact, more of an impact than you would expect. That has been one of the biggest lessons for me, is the outsized impact of small acts of kindness. I want to tell you the story behind this picture. As I mentioned, we gave out candles at the 1-year anniversary of the shooting at Pickering Islamic Center, we gave out these candles. We set aside about 90 candles for the students and staff of Brock Elementary School, which is hosted at Pickering Islamic Center. Sister Razia Habibi, who is the principal, that's the lady in the picture, she had an assembly with the school where Elizabeth and I were there. And by way of introduction, she said, "How many of you know who Elizabeth is?" 1/3 of the kids raised their hands. And she asked them, "How do you know Elizabeth?" And all together they shouted out, "Hugs!" The reason that was so amazing was that when we first started giving out hugs, it was January 30th. At that time of year, prayers were early enough in the day that we were there, because we would show up around prayer time. Prayers were early enough in the day that these kids would be getting out from school and getting picked up at that time. As the days got longer, after that first week, prayer time was much farther out. So all of these kids at this school who remembered Elizabeth and who remembered the hugs, remembered it because of that 1 week over a year earlier, and knew her face and knew her name, because of the outsized impact of small acts of kindness. It might seem futile. It might seem, how could this possibly make a difference? I'm standing here because this makes a big difference. And this is going back to what Dr. Cathy was mentioning, the idea of infrastructure. Our communities are built up of physical infrastructure, roads, streets, buildings, all these kinds of things. These are the physical structures of our community. We are standing inside of one of those structures. Our communities also have social infrastructure. This social infrastructure is made up of the relationships that we have with one another. And just as buildings don't build themselves, and streetlights do not just magically sprout up out of the ground, our social infrastructure also requires deliberate action. We need to make sure to make an effort to make friends with our neighbors, to understand them, to help them, because that builds the social infrastructure of our communities. This is very important. I want to make sure that Canada remains a shared, diverse, and welcoming community. And all of us together, we are helping to do that. There's one final thing that I want to discuss. There have been many times over the last couple of years when we've been giving out hugs, I've mentioned to people, hey, you should come and join us. It turns out that giving hugs to hundreds of strangers isn't for everybody. Who knew? So we've gone there with my daughter many times, and sometimes I've felt very alone, like I'm the only one that cares. And I've heard this from a few other people over the last few months, that they felt quite alone as well. I will tell you, what I've discovered is that we are absolutely not alone, not by any stretch of the imagination. When this initiative got started in mid-August, when Jennifer O'Connell said, yes, I'm going to make a statement in the House of Commons, and I started contacting everybody I knew. Everybody I knew was 20 people at Pickering Islamic Center. That was everybody I knew. I'm a software developer. I code for a living. I hide behind a monitor. I've never done anything even remotely close to this before. So I started talking to people at Pickering Islamic Center, and they got me in contact with people. And those people got me in contact with people. And the word spread, and things grew. And the appetite and the desire out there from so very many people to make sure that all of our neighbors are welcome, to push back the darkness of ignorance and hate with the light of knowledge and friendship. There are so many people out there. You are not alone. There are so many people that want to work together on this. We can do this. Thank you very much.